Hi guys, this is only the third newsletter, the third video in this series, and this is already the end of the year. And for this end of the year weekly newsletter, I wanted to talk about the current war around financial privacy, especially in the crypto space, which is totally obstructed by the hype around the Bitcoin ETFs. A few months ago, a group of senators introduced the Financial Technology Protection Act to create a working group to study how cryptos can be used to finance terrorism and criminal activities. In this group would be represented the US Treasury Department, Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, the Internal Revenue Service, the Office of Foreign Asset Control, the FBI, the Drug Enforcement Agency, the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice, the Department of State, and the CIA. Nothing less, my friend. And as we've seen recently at a Congress hearing with Senator Warren, threats such as terrorism financing and criminal activities are used to spread the narratives of necessary crackdown on cryptos and financial privacy. All this with very little to no evidence, of course. Bitcoin in particular is posed as a threat when the largest vehicle for fraud is still by far the US dollar. The attack on financial privacy is led by the World Economic Forum Partnership Against Cybercrime, the WFPAC, which is a public-private partnership with the objective to coordinate law enforcement, intelligence agencies, large companies, tech specifically, and financial institutions to combat their definition for cybercrime. Their definition would include, for instance, using cryptocurrencies or privacy tools like mixers, and wants policies that could criminalize anonymous Bitcoin transactions. Spreading misinformation as well as defined by government would also be criminalized. Recently, the Federal Reserve threatened to sue Bitcoin Magazine for basically mocking the platform FedNow. This is where we are now, guys, and we all see where it's going. The irony is not lost considering that privacy tools are used by dissidents under oppressive regimes. In a few words, a number of powerful groups from public and private, the corporatocracy in reality, see financial privacy, particularly as it relates to cryptocurrencies, as a threat to their plans for increased surveillance and control over the financial system, which is on the verge of collapsing in the West, as we've seen before. Let me remind you about what we've said about the banking sector in the US, which experienced very large unrealized losses, and whereas the slightest bank run, like we've seen on SVB at the beginning of this year, could trigger a massive banking sector collapse. The WFPAC proposed solutions would actually greatly erode or eliminate financial privacy in a kind of a cyber patriot act that would further shrink individual liberties, just as the Patriot Act did. And we saw the result of this. Clearly, if Bitcoin as we know it now is destroyed or controlled, privacy, not only financial with CBDCs, but also personal privacy with digital IDs, privacy would be a thing of the past. The WFPAC explicitly stated that it wants all organizations involved, such as law enforcement, intelligence agencies, large companies, and financial institutions, to closely coordinate in this fight against financial privacy, even if it means operating outside existing legal frameworks. I'll give you a couple of seconds to let that sink in. And this leads me to my second point for this video, the control of Bitcoin. The rise of institutions like BlackRock in the crypto space could definitely be a problem for the future of Bitcoin. If an ETF is the easy access to owning Bitcoin, BlackRock and other ETF issuers, there's about 12 ETF applicants at the moment, would become the largest passive holders of Bitcoin, massively reducing the liquidity and transactions made in Bitcoin, thus hurting miners' revenues, specifically in the context of the next halving in 2024. So the timing for this ETF launch might not be totally innocent here. Mining becoming less or even not economically viable would hurt the value proposition for Bitcoin as a decentralized, non-government controlled, non-inflationary currency. all spot Bitcoin ETF will basically own the Bitcoin market, and this could sign the actual death of Bitcoin. The only alternative will then be a new decentralized version of Bitcoin. The best that could happen at that point would be a crypto hater being elected in the US in 2024 and banning the Bitcoin from the US, which would promote further decentralization around the world and give the time for greater adoption, and thus Bitcoin becoming much more resilient. I can dream, but I don't believe Elizabeth Warren can become the first woman president of the United States. "2024 will be extremely interesting on all fronts: economy, politics, geopolitics, and of course, individual liberties. The next years will potentially see the biggest fight for a new form of society and world organization we've seen in generations. All options appear to be on the table at the moment. But in the meantime, let's still live in the moment and let's get ready to party. Happy New Year, my friend."